So it's all for play for still.
I think so. Do you want to bet against us?
Hello, Villa fans, and welcome to For the Love of Paul McGrath podcast, where Aston Villa lost 1-0 to Monaco in the Stade Louis II in a game of very little quality, a game of very little excitement. It reminded me of like a European Championships game that would be on like a Wednesday at 2 o'clock in the middle of the day. It didn't sound great on TV. The stadium just didn't seem like it had any atmosphere, and the players didn't bring any massive energy to the game either, which is a shame. Because a win there today would have cemented a place for us in the top 8. As you can see, I just took off my hat a moment ago. I'm now regretting doing it, and I don't know where I've put it. But a win would have cemented our position there, I think. Just looking at who else is playing at the moment and who has to play in the last day of the season. But it didn't happen. And it didn't happen largely because our Achilles heel cost us again, conceding early. This game is a completely different game because we conceded early. Monaco's two kind of shielding midfielders in Lamine Camara and Zakaria were brilliant, and as were their two centre halves. They were extremely strong, extremely physical, extremely athletic players, and we couldn't get past them at all. And in the pre-match, I said about Buendia being maybe somebody who could come on and unlock those. And I know we look at his stats and we'll see what was, how he played, and he was passable, but it just wasn't enough. It wasn't enough. We had a couple of glorious chances at the start. Leon Bailey's header is a textbook in how not to head the ball. I would like everybody to show their kids how not to head the ball. Is the way that Leon Bailey did it, and he had all day to watch it come over people's heads too. We missed a couple of chances that we could have scored early on in the game, and then we had the Watkins chance, which was well saved. And then just in the second half, just nothing happened. Nothing happened for us. We made a couple of changes. John Duran came on. He came on. I suppose that's really what you could say about John Duran. He got him. People say he got himself around the place, gave away some silly frees. He tries an overhead kick in the middle of the box that goes about 15 yards over the bar. He was fine. We couldn't get the ball to him. I'm not blaming him. Don't get me wrong here, but we lost all foothold, all momentum in that second half, and there just wasn't anything happening. It really wasn't. And as we started to push forward, Matty Cash gets forward on one or two occasions, gets the ball across the box, but their numbers in defence were just huge, and we couldn't get past them. And I'll come back to the game. The level of turgidness in the game was 100% dictated by the fact that we conceded an early goal. So we can talk about this player was poor, that player was poor, whatever. Monaco were really good. They were really well set up. They were very, very well set up, and they were set up in such a way that they wanted to not lose at any cost today. And when they get that goal early on, which comes from a mistake, a sloppy pass, gives away the corner, and then a brilliant save from Emi Martinez, and there's nothing you can do to stop that error from Singo. He just comes in like a train, and he sticks it in the back of the net. There's nothing you can do in that instance. But we're down 1-0, and you think that there will be some sort of clarion call or rallying. You could see Unai Emery was really upset on the touchline. Positionally, it was difficult for our players because of the way they hunkered down in midfield, and their midfield were absolutely excellent. I thought their two midfielders were absolutely excellent, and they changed both of them because they ran themselves into the ground, and they brought on what's your man's name, Magassa and Teze, to come into those positions on when did they bring those guys on? So they brought Teze on with 11 minutes to go, and they brought Magassa on after 65 minutes, and those guys didn't look out of place in their either, and we just couldn't get through them. I think today was a day that was crying out for John McGinn. Today was a day that was crying out for a today was a day that was crying out for an Amadou Onana or a Ross Barkley, and we didn't have them. We didn't have the horses to bring on in midfield. While Emi Buendia, I thought, played well, for good portions of the game. It just he wasn't. It didn't unlock things, and I think that maybe if we had somebody we could bring on to play in that number 6 position, move Yuri Tielemans up further forward, might have caused a small bit more creativity for us. But we were very hamstrung. Rodgers had a weird game today, very very strange game. Made a lot of poor decisions. As I say, Bailey missing those couple of chances and just was ineffectual again on that right hand side. Just extremely ineffectual. And we couldn't get any service to either of our strikers, when they were on. So bad day at the office. Bad day at the office against a team who were incredibly well drilled and were willing to hunt us down in all areas of the field. That's my synopsis of it. And you know what? There's very little else to say. I saw a lot on Twitter actually of people saying that we couldn't pass the ball, that our passing was dire today. Would you believe we had an 84% pass success rate and Monaco had a 75% pass success rate? So that'll tell you how kind of poor the game was, even though ours was, we had a better pass success rate than Monaco did. We owned possession. There was a lot of reminders from games gone by of this, whereby well drilled, well disciplined teams who don't break from their structure very easily. When they don't do that, we can't capitalize. We had 61% of the possession. They had 39% of the possession today, and they're the home team. So we had all the play. We had all the play. They scored their goal. Yes, they scored a second goal. It was ruled offside. That was chalked off. He was a mile offside. So I didn't even shout or anything like that when the ball went in. He looked plainly offside in real time. And he stuck it in the back of the net, but it was ruled off. We couldn't get going. We didn't get much going today. And look, you can sit here and you can start trying to figure out, where did that go wrong? We're 12 minutes after the game finished. It's very simple. The team needs to have another gear after we go 1-0 down against teams that don't want to be ball dominant. Arsenal was a different story at the weekend. Arsenal got 2-0 up. They want to have the ball, and we could catch them on not so much on the break, but we could attack them. They had players out of position. Monaco didn't today. Monaco knew they needed to win or get a draw today, and they performed excellently. They've got a really good manager. Eddie Hutter's a really good manager. And before the game last night and before the game, I know I didn't go into too much in their team because I couldn't see it, but it's a difficult place to go. Like you heard the commentators say they've beaten Man City, they've beaten Chelsea, they've beaten. I think that did they say they've beaten Liverpool on that ground recently? I can't remember, but he rattled off all these teams, these English teams who have come to that stadium and have lost. And Villa is now another name on that list of English teams that have lost. And like as I say, we could be hopping up and down here, hitting the table and everything, and giving out about players, but all of them were poor. Like all of them were poor. I think all of them were poor for sure. Yeah, like it's difficult. Like as I say again, it's very difficult to analyze that game. It was dead from start to finish. I thought the ref at times was weird. Just a European ref. That's what I would call him. Just a European ref. Some things were fouled, some things weren't, some things were touchy, some things weren't. Then when Vanderson starts throwing himself down at the end of the game, he starts to get a bit antsy and starts to puff out the chest and does the whole Hollywood run like all the referees do over to those situations. And he's just your cookie cutter copy and paste. European referee is fine. It was grand. Look, we'll always have something we could say. The referee could have given, couldn't, or didn't have to give or whatever. But like Villa were their own biggest downfall today. Villa were their own biggest problem today. They didn't create enough. They were stagnant in midfield. They overcomplicated it at times in midfield. And when we got that ball centrally, we were so isolated from each other that it was easy for the two hulks at the back in Singo and Crair, along with the other two lads in front of them to defend. When we did get corners, which we got quite a few of them, got 7 corners in the game. When we did get them, our delivery our delivery was very so. Like Yuri Tielemans couldn't beat the first man. And I know our tactic is to go to the front post. We've scored a couple of goals like that before, but when that doesn't work, you have to beat the first man. Matson comes on, takes corners on the left hand side. I think he kicked one right into Majeski's hands. He was a good goalkeeper coming claiming crosses. If that was a tactic for us to put poor crosses in on top of him, well then he absolutely stood up to the test on that one. But like we lacked ingenuity in every facet of the game. I think today we lacked it, and we looked. I'm not going to say we looked leggy, but we looked like we couldn't get out of second gear or third gear. And that was down to an awful lot of what Monaco did, because they were really, really good. I'm going to come to some of your comments here, and I'm going to scroll through them, if you guys don't mind. David Dam says service was atrocious. Absolutely. I thought the service today was bad. One of the best crosses in the game was late in the second half. Matty Cash, after we went to kind of trade the back with Kamara going in there, Matty Cash breaks down the right hand side and he sends a lovely cross. He did unbelievably well to get the cross away. Absolutely brilliantly well to get the cross away. It was low, but they're two big men. Singo just gets in front of Ollie Watkins and clears it away for a corner. It didn't look great in real time, but the effort that Matty Cash did to get on the end of that ball, to bring it forward and cross it in, the wrap his foot around it, I just thought it was but like good crosses were few and far between. Another good cross for Bailey's header where he completely miscues it and heads himself in the chest, almost, and doesn't get any purchase on it. Yeah, delivery was poor today. Where are we? Rasta says, if Malin is gone running, I can't see Bailey staying past this summer. I don't disagree. I was trying to come up with something more elaborate or intellectual or something like that to say, but I just don't disagree. I don't disagree. I think the succession plan is there, that, you know, first for he either needs to find his boots of last year, or he could very well be in the Saudi League next year. He's a frustrating player. He's a very, very frustrating player. Because you can see in his face, like two things annoyed me about Leon Bailey today. Number one, I watched that interview he did with TNT, and I'm going to sound like Paddy now. I do apologize. No one ever wants to really sound like Paddy at 8:00 on a Tuesday. I'm joking, by the way. But one thing really annoyed me. They did a TNT thing with himself and Ezri Konsa. And one of the questions was, which player is always late for training? And Leon Bailey said he was always late for training. So he knows like that just kind of was a red rag to a bull to me, you know. Essentially, like he named himself as the player who was always going to be late to training. And I was like, man, come on. Like, what are you doing? It's simple things like that. And then the other thing as well is that, you know, when things aren't going his way, you can see it written all over his face. He's an emotional player. He said that before. That's fine. But he's about 27 years of age. You know, there's a professionalism that needs to kick in here as well. Other players can see that, and his own team, other players on the other team can see that, and they just go and they target him. And, you know, they know that if he can't get past you, you just stop him in his tracks and don't let him get any momentum. He's the definition of look good, feel good, play good. And we need him to start playing good and feeling good if we need to get something out of him. But if that doesn't happen, well, then we need to get somebody in who's a bit more consistent. And last year's Leon Bailey was absolutely majestic, brilliant. Fired us to the Champions League, and forever we'll be grateful for that. But we're in January the 21st of 2025 now. And this year, while he's been injured, he hasn't reached the heights. He just hasn't. And there will be rotation in this team. You know, PSR is looming. Players like him will fetch money. And I think that's a valid thing. You know, I think there's valid succession planning going on there in that position. I think that is the case. And Des says, no width, too narrow. Yeah. That's been our issue all year. Too narrow, and not being able to get the ball wide fast. And when we do get that ball wide fast, we have to slow it up because we've made so much a big effort to try and draw everybody over to one side. We've got nobody that can get to Watkins up top, and because he's isolated. Which Tielemans has helped in the last game and a half. Obviously, Onana being in there beside Kamara, but not today. Today wasn't to be. I just thought that front three, Rodgers looked so disjointed playing alongside Bundia and Bailey because he was getting nothing. There was no coherency between that three behind Watkins, and then that throws off your striker, and it stopped all the creativity. That three together looked. Bundia came very, very deep. Rodgers stayed out on the left. Then Rodgers started getting frustrated, started coming into the centre, started playing up alongside Watkins. And then there was just nothing going through Bailey as well. So, those three players almost played themselves out of the game at times in that first half. And it's the structure was lost at times. And that's what led to a lot of our play breaking down. And you could see it. Unai Emery was absolutely wretched on the sideline, giving out to people, through the whole game. And I can imagine it's because that three were keeping very structure there. When John Duran came on, he was exactly the same. Not keeping the structure. Unai Emery was giving out to him. He was giving out to Maatsen as well. He wanted Maatsen to pull further forward. It was just wasn't the finest hour, I think, for any of them in that aspect. Where else are we here? I'm just going to come. Guys, a lot of the comments are very similar. It's saying how poor we were as well, and everybody's frustrating, and that's fair enough. Before I end, I'm just going to talk about Diego Carlos. Did get on the plane, so it looks like Diego Carlos is on his way to Fenerbahce. Be interesting to see what happens with regards to incomings. While they won't obviously be able to play against Celtic, any incomings, whether it is like Bade, or whether it is somebody else, whether it is Kevin Danzo, or whether it is another defender that we are yet to hear about, does come through the door. I think very much so that we will see some movement there in the not too distant future. I also wouldn't rule out maybe a loan, some sort of a loan for maybe another attacker. I could see an attacker come in. Maybe if somebody goes out, I'm not fully convinced that Buendia isn't going to go on loan to somebody. I'm not fully convinced that he isn't going to go, and if he does go, I think he will be replaced with somebody. But it would be interesting to watch that from a transfer point of view. Masood says we missed McGinn and Paul, I presume it is. We missed Paul. We missed Paul McGrath for sure. We missed Paul McGrath every day since he retired. But I presume you mean Paul there. Yes, I think John McGinn was a big miss today. It was a game that would have suited him. Do you know what? I actually think that game would have really suited Ross Barkley too. Really suited Ross Barkley to come in the last 20 minutes because the pace of the game was slowish. It was a bit bogged down in the middle. That's when Barkley does his best work. Barkley does his best work there, digging things out and trying to make things. He moves forward with the ball 6-7 yards, doesn't make lung busting runs anymore, but he just breaks those kind of mid lines, if you want to call them. And we didn't have anyone who could do that today. I think John McGinn makes a big difference in that game as well because I think he's more energetic. I think if John McGinn is in there, maybe even playing off the right or off the left, or even in there in the Buendia position, I just think we see more dynamism from him. And I felt throughout the whole game I would have loved to see John McGinn in there. But we'll never know. Also, I think I would love to see Onana in there too. So I think midfield, while I've given out a good bit about that three behind Ollie Watkins, I think midfield is the area that I would have just had. I suppose realistically, when we're talking about that, if Onana's there, Tielemans goes a bit further forward, maybe McGinn plays on the left or on the right, and Rodgers plays on the left, and we go that way about it. Just those options that, because we had Caden Young on the bench. Caden Young wasn't going to come off the bench and play in that wide role. When we did make those substitutions, it was Duran comes on for Bailey, and we change our structure. And then when Bundy and Rodgers come off, it's Lamar Bogart and and Jacob Ramsey that come on. So there was a tweaking of the formation there that needed to happen. I think when you have your Swiss Army knife of John McGinn there, you can account for those tweaks a small little bit better. But we will never know. We'll never know. Where else are we? AB says tough watch that one. Easy to point out prior at prior after the game, but I'd have kept Bogart in and kept Uri high. Rogers was off it. Watkins was starved, but should have converted the one. I think it was a good save. And I know everyone's going to say, Jesus, Neil, will you ever criticize Watkins? I have criticized him. I've criticized him recently. I think that's a good save. And for a man like me that's only 5'7" and has played in goals before for a period of time, they're difficult to get down to. But look, he didn't have an awful lot to get at, and maybe if he goes high instead of going low in that instance, there he hits the net. But yeah, he's not completely without blame, but I do still think it was a good save. I thought Rogers. Yeah, people were saying in the comments here saying Rogers was off it. I just think that it was a weird front three in hindsight, and hindsight's always 2020. Hindsight is always 2020. So we have to bear that in mind, because I would have been happy to see that front three in the team sheet tantrum. But on reflection, after 20 minutes, you looked at it and you like the delineation of actual roles and responsibilities was weird in that. The more I look at it, I don't think Rogers wants to play on the left. And he kept on coming in central. And then I thought Buendia just wasn't able to cover that ground out there. And while I'm going to say it again, I thought he got on the ball. I thought he played okay. Like it was a disjointed tree behind Watkins there, and it stopped us from getting any forward push or momentum, I think. So that's a shame. Yeah, it's a shame. Where else are we? Carrie asks, are we signing Johnny David for free in the summer? No, I don't think so. I don't think Jonathan David is coming to Aston Villa. But I do think Aston Villa might have a crack off signing a couple of free transfers, because it's something we've done pretty well, like Kamara and Tielemans. And if you want to circumnavigate PSR to a decent degree, signing players on free transfers would be pretty good. But yeah, it ain't going to happen for us. It ain't going to help us now signing people on free transfers. But I would like if we signed Jonathan David. But again, I'm going to say it. I'd like if we signed Brina Mbolo. I know he didn't get on much today from a scoring point of view, but the man's a handful and he gets around the field. And he's a handful of a player in Mbolo for sure. I'm not saying we are in for him or anything like that. He's just a guy that I personally like as a striker. Right, I am. I'm going to go, guys, because there's only so much I can really talk about that game. It was nondescript, and I don't want to go in too hard on players. I had a bit to say about Bailey there, but I don't want to go in too hard on players, because everybody was equally as culpable today for a second gear performance. And it's great when you say to a team, "Oh, we didn't get out of second gear," and you win 2-0. When you don't get out of second gear and you lose 1-0, it looks awful on the field, and that's really what happened today. A lot of stagnation came from the tree behind Watkins and the early goal. The early goal killed the game as a contest, for sure. Absolutely killed it as a contest. It stopped the open spaces from Monaco's point of view. I think they were always going to stop them anyway, the way that they set up with those two central midfielders who were really good. And Villa just had no answer to it. Depleted in midfield. Would a McGinn, a Ramsey, a McGinn, Barkley, and Onana have made a difference in there? We'll never know. But we live to fight another day, and I will be at Celtic roaring my guts up. I was hoping we'd have a dead rubber against Celtic so I could go in and enjoy the game as it is. But now I have to shout against Celtic, which I'm very, very happy to do for my beloved Aston Villa, and hopefully we'll go there to see a win. And Villa cementing their place in the top 8 of the Champions League, which would be absolutely fantastic. So thanks a million, everybody. Thanks 1,000. Oh, also as well, if you didn't catch it today, I did another podcast on Andres Garcia, our new signing today, which we didn't speak about at all, but I did a podcast on him today with Jordan Thomas, who writes his own blog at La Liga and beyond, and also for the Spanish Segunda podcast as well, which is a podcast all about Segunda Division. Really in-depth, really good podcast. It's one I actually started listening to last year. Because to be honest with you, I like the presenters. They're really good and they're really knowledgeable, and you can tell that they actually really care about that league. So I listened to it a couple of times. I won't say I'm an avid listener, but I was delighted to have Jordi on today and to talk about him. And he gave it bluntly again, like I had with Daniel Malin. Like, not everything was rosy in the garden coming from him, and that's cool too. But have a listen to it. Hope you enjoy it, and we will be back with any more transfer rumors or nonsense, whichever way you want to put it, over the next couple of days. obviously post-match, pre-match, team sheet tantrums, all that jazz before the West Ham stuff. And then the week after might be a bit difficult for us because myself and Paddy will be at the Celtic game. And then I'm on my stag that weekend, so you probably won't see me at all next week from a podcasting point of view unless we get on and do something before the Celtic game. But we'll deal with West Ham first at the weekend. Thanks a million, everybody, for watching and for listening. Look, it's not the end of the day, but it's not the end of the day, but it's not the end of the road, should I say? But it's a sobering loss tonight, and one that we're going to need to come back from, and it's all to play for against Celtic this on Wednesday of next week. So we'll see you then. Thanks a million. Stay safe, stay healthy, and all that's left to say is up.